Hello. We start now. I really need to finish off this traveling stuff. When I started it, I made a mistake in making this go way too long. I started going way into each city too much, and really I wish this had just been one video. So the goal is to finish it now in the next hour. I've just started this timer because I'm over it, and I'm sure you're over it too, but let's just cap it off. And then we'll do something fun on the next episode. I think I want to do something about conspiracy theories. So, yeah. I mean, this whole time I've been trying to watch what I say, to not say anything that's too divisive or that people might have strong opinions about. So let's completely throw that out the window with the next one and piss a whole bunch of people off. Okay, where am I up to? Where are my notes? So at this point we did, let's count it. So London, Bristol, Manchester, Liverpool, all the places in Wales, we counted it as one city. Edinburgh, Aberdeen, Dundee, Inverness, that other place in Scotland where I got the ferry from. Okay, so that's 10. Belfast, Galway, Dublin, Stockholm, Turku, St. Petersberg, Moscow, Tallinn, Riga, Vilnius, that's 20. Warsaw, Lviv, Kiev, Chernobyl, if you want to count that. Krakow, how many is that? 25. Auschwitz, and yeah, that's where we ended. So I went to Auschwitz and back to Krakow. So I think we're up to 26 cities, and that's, I don't know, 8 countries or something. Who cares? But let's blast through it better this time. So, landed my ass in Budapest, and what did I do there? The first thing that comes to my head is I had ice cream that was really good, and I've never seen it anywhere else, but yeah. Budapest, it was the end of, towards the end of the World Cup, and I was staying in a hostel where there was a bunch of English people there, people from London or something, I'm not sure. But anyway, England, it was the second last round of the World Cup, and I remember they were all watching this match in the hostel, and it was where they got knocked out by France, and that was hilarious. Seeing this whole, I mean, I'd feel bad for them, but at the same time, sport. They were so devastated. There was this one guy that just his initial reaction was he almost started crying, he got really emotional, and then he just pulled out this bottle of vodka out of nowhere and just started sculling it. So that was pretty funny. But actual things in Budapest, if I am not getting this wrong, I'm pretty sure it's called Budapest because it's on one side of the river it's Buda, and then the other side is Pest. I'm not sure how they say it, but regardless, there's some history there which I'm forgetting. What I do remember is that I went across the river to this place where there's this underground cave network, and you can do a tour through there. And that was the interesting thing for me there in that city was doing that. You can go fully underground into this wet cave. And I went there with these 2 girls that I met in the hostel, and we had a bunch of fun. Took some funny videos and tried to scare some people and stuff because it's super creepy down there. I don't know, I guess people say, I think there's ghost tours down there, which could be something cool to try. I remember it being very hot there, but other than that, that's about all I can remember. Some other thing about Hungary is that the Hungarian language is one of the weirdest languages in the world, and I think it's one of the rarest, well, not rarest, but it's one of the only, it's that, and there's some other country that they stem from this certain branch of language that no other languages exist in. So I think it's one of the hardest languages to learn. So that's my stuff about Hungary. Then I went from Hungary to Split in Croatia, and I went to Croatia because my sister had been traveling 3 years before me or something, backpacking, and she said by far her favorite place was Croatia. And I think that at the time, like if I had a went there when she went, I think I probably might have said the same thing. Although she's much more interested in, beautiful beaches and that kind of thing. Whereas, I mean, I'm into that as well, but it's more her thing, I think. But when I went there, my first impression was that it's like super touristy now. And I think that that's kind of the overall theme of how Croatia is kind of moving, is that like, Alex, my sister, kind of went at the perfect time, and then everyone started realizing that Croatia is this amazing place to go visit with beautiful beaches, and it's not too expensive and stuff. But now, like, it's super busy, and that thing of it not being so expensive isn't true anymore because it got popular, and now it is really expensive. So, there's some things that are super expensive. Like alcohol in a bar, you get a beer bottle that's like this big, and it's like, $10 or something. But Split itself has like a really nice old walled off city like all other places in Europe, but this one is more like, it's all limestone and stuff. It feels a lot older, a lot more ancient, like, like almost, it's not, but I'm going to say it feels like kind of pyramids era, but well, I don't know. I can't remember for the life of me how old it is, but it's like these huge, smooth limestone blocks, and it's a really interesting thing to see. And I'll talk about that more in Dubrovnik, but yeah, like the actual like the architecture and stuff, like I mentioned, architecture is great in all these other cities, but this is more like it's super ancient. I'll talk about that later anyway. But also the weather's great there. The beaches and stuff are awesome. I didn't do that much in Split. I think I like climbed up this mountain where you can get a nice view over the city and stuff. Activity wise, can't really remember. So then I got a ferry from Split to the island Hvar, which is a very popular island for, like you have these like Sail Croatia boats where they're like party boats, and you can get on them and they'll go to all these different cities and stuff, and Hvar is one of the places where they go. And a lot of it is like you're just enjoying the sun on the boat, you're swimming in the ocean, you land in a port, go party your head off, and then, rinse and repeat. And I think in Hvar, it's like, it definitely feels like it's just a tourism machine. Like it's all just like bars, and it's basically all just tourists there getting drunk. And I think kind of it might have lost some of its culture because all the people, like all the locals that live there have kind of just tuned into like tourist mode. And it's like, well, I guess it would be totally different for the rest of the year, but they're kind of like, it doesn't feel friendly. It feels like they're just there to make money from people. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's not always like that, and maybe it didn't used to be like that, but that's kind of the vibe I get from it now. And also because I've got some stories from some guys I met there. Basically, there was these 3 guys working in the hostel. 2 of them were Kiwis and 1 Aussie guy. And we started hanging out, like, because most of the people that were staying there were like in friend groups or they were couples or whatever, and I was by myself. So I was kind of just hanging out with these guys that were working there, but they were working like doing the pub crawls, and they were the same kind of age as me, so like I got along with them. The guy from Australia was a bit older, but I still get along really well with him. And basically, like 2 nights in a row, I did the pub crawl with these guys, and what I noticed and what they were heavily focused on was just how disgusting like the kind of people are that are partying there. Like, not all tourists are annoying, but like it just has this really dirty kind of disrespectful vibe. But especially like really creepy stuff that guys were doing to girls there, like, trying to hook up with girls and stuff. And yeah, over these 2 nights, we saw like a bunch of different things that were super off-putting. Like, I remember being like in this alleyway kind of between these 2 clubs where everyone's like drinking and dancing and stuff. And this girl, like, got the attention of me and Pete, this Australian guy, and she's like, "Can you guys help? Like, this guy is like creeping onto my friend." And he's standing there like with his arm around this girl who's like almost passed out. And we're like, hey, like, you know, cut this out, let her go or whatever. And a bouncer came over and he was like he was drunk as well. And he's like, no, it's all good. Like, this is my girlfriend. We're going to go. And the friend's standing there like, she doesn't know him at all. Like, please don't let that happen. And we're like, yeah, okay. Like, so, you know, we split them up and everything. And it was shocking that someone would try to do something like that. But it was, you know, maybe it was just that night, or maybe it was just, I just happened to see some bad things there, but yeah, just bad vibes. And there was this other thing, like this guy lifted a girl up in the middle of a dance floor, like in one of these clubs, and she didn't know him, and she like punched him in the face, this chick. And and then there was this other thing where like I was walking back to the hostel with the Australian guy, and we came across one of the girls from the hostel who was talking with this older, like, I don't know, like Indian or Pakistani guy who was there strangely with like what seemed like his wife. And we're like, what the fuck's going on here? And she's like, tell this guy to leave me alone or whatever. And she's like, and this guy was like, no, she's coming with us. She's coming back to my yacht. I'm like, what the fuck? No, she's not. And like she was super drunk as well and scared. And we confronted this guy, and well, like it was mostly Pete, the other guy, because he's quite a big dude, and he was like, just back off, like fuck off, and don't talk to these girls again or whatever. And he was like, I can make one phone call and I'll have 20 people here. Like, you don't know who I am. Like, you don't know how much money I have and all this stuff. And we're like, all right, whatever. Like, just fuck off. And in the midst of all this, she ran away. And so we went back to the hostel to check that she made it home all right. She wasn't there. And then we came back out looking for her and eventually found her like crying on the street. And, we helped to get her home and everything. But yeah, it's just like way too much creepy stuff happening there. And the next morning, these guys, while I was asleep, had a conversation with the woman running the hostel. And she was a woman. And they basically said, like, we've seen too much messed up stuff here. We don't feel comfortable with taking girls into that environment where things like this are going to be happening to them. And we don't want to be responsible for it. And this woman who was the owner of the hostel, this is what I mean about, like, they kind of have lost their, any kind of friendliness in exchange for just the desire to make money from tourists. She basically said, well, your job is just to take them to the bars, and whatever happens to them there is not your responsibility. And they were just like, that's the most fucked up thing I've ever heard anyone say. We're all quitting. Catch you later. We're leaving today. And they came and woke me up, and they were like, what are you doing today, man? I'm like hungover as shit. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I got to check out, dude. Like, I think I'm going to head to Bosnia. And they're like, sweet, we'll come with you. I was like, what? Because I was meant to be working there for the whole season, and they filled me in on it. And but yeah, other than that, like it was really just that party scene that was just disgusting. But I did go on a boat across to another smaller island off that one where there was some really nice beaches and stuff. But one thing I will say is that, and this is kind of applies to a lot of beachy places in the Mediterranean, is that all the beaches were like rocks, like no sand on the ground, which means it's quite uncomfortable to actually walk around, which is something you sort of take for granted. But it was and there's a lot of sea urchins and stuff as well. So as much as they're kind of beautiful, it's also like you have to watch where you step because everything hurts your feet. But the water is amazing and all that kind of stuff. And we did have, like, aside from these fucked up things happening, we went to this other club where it's kind of like you go on a boat across to this other island, like in the middle of the night, and there's like a party on the island and stuff. Bit cheesy, like the music and that kind of thing, but it was a fun experience. But yeah, too much creepy stuff happening there. So yeah, they were like, we'll come to Bosnia with you. And I was like, sweet. First, I'm going to go to Dubrovnik for like one night or whatever. And then they were like, yeah, we've got tickets back to Split. So they went to Split, I went to Dubrovnik, and then we said we would meet in Bosnia after that. So yeah, I went to Dubrovnik, and Dubrovnik for me was kind of like Split. Like I didn't really do any partying or anything. It was just about like checking out the scenery. And if you don't know already, a lot of movies have been shot in Dubrovnik, and TV shows, like a lot of stuff from Game of Thrones was shot there. Like whether it's in the actual old city that's all walled off as well, or there's like this castle that's kind of on this big rock that sort of is right next to the city, and you can see, you know, they can see each other like across this kind of small inlet. But yeah, the castle is super impressive, and it just looks like really fucking cool up on this rock, and lots of cool things to take photos of. And you can walk around the city wall and, you know, see across all the rooftops and everything. And the actual streets in the city look amazing too. Like there's scenes from like some of the recent Star Wars films that were shot there, and yeah, it's very impressive. And I've said this to a few people that I would actually almost recommend people to visit Dubrovnik off season, like maybe not in winter, but not in summer, purely just because it's such an impressive place to see. And yeah, a lot of the appeal of Croatia is beaches and stuff, but also like Dubrovnik in itself as a visual thing is like definitely well worth seeing, and you don't need to go there for the beaches. It's, yeah, I think it would be a lot nicer off season because it's not going to be super touristy, like people everywhere and drunk people and all that kind of stuff. So maybe the people are a little bit friendlier off season as well. Or, I mean, that's a blanket statement to say people aren't friendly, but it was just kind of, yeah, that feeling you get when everything kind of just feels like they're just like as sick of all the tourists as anyone else is, but they're like, well, at least we're making money from this shit. These from idiots. So yeah, I left Dubrovnik and went to Mostar in Bosnia, and I had some good recommendations from a friend who'd been to Mostar before. And I'm not sure whether it's a good idea to plug the hostel or not, but he gave me a specific hostel to go to. And I know that they were super busy, and it's mostly from word of mouth because everyone that goes there recommends it to the next person, which kind of makes me think I don't really want to say it on the internet because it might sort of ruin that kind of the magic of like, you know, whatever. But if you're there, you can scope it out and try and figure out which one I'm talking about. But it's run by this older lady. She's maybe in her 40s or something, and she's super cute and cute like a cute old lady. I didn't need to clarify that. But I got there, and when I got there, it was like 10:30 at night or something. And when I saw her, she had like a headdress and stuff on, and she looked like this cute old lady. And I was just like, oh, I'm really sorry, because she knew I was coming. And I was like, I'm really sorry if I kept you up or something. Like I assume you probably don't normally keep the reception open this late. I'm fine to if you just want to give me the keys, like I can pay right now. I've got cash. I don't want to keep you up. She's like, no, it's fine. I'm like, no, really, like, I can give you the money. Just give me the keys. I'll find the room, and it's all good. I feel bad. And she's like, relax. Listen, you've just had a long bus trip here. You're tired. I can tell you're stressed. Just go outside, take a seat, take a load off. And I'm like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, it's fine. I was like, okay. And they've got this nice little courtyard there and like a little undercover area and cushions on the seat and everything. I went and sat down. I'm like, just looking at it, I'm like, I feel bad. Like I can just go in there and give her money. But, I just relaxed for a bit, and a few minutes later, her and another woman that was working there that looked similar to her walked out. One of them's holding a basket of bread and the other one's holding a bowl of soup. And she comes over and brings me this bowl of soup and a basket of bread. And she's like, here, have something to eat. Like, do you want any tea or anything? I'm like, no. Like, seriously, this is too much. You don't need to do this. It's fine. And she's like, no, we do this for everyone. It's okay. Just, I'll bring you some tea. I'm like, yeah, okay, bring me the tea. But yeah, she's super lovely, really, really friendly, like family kind of business. And then they run like her brother does like a tour that they ask you if you want to join in. It starts from the hostel, and it was like, they charge you like 20 euros or something, maybe 30. But it was a full day, and we went on this tour with this guy, and he basically told us the whole history of, his experience living in Bosnia, and, like the falling of Yugoslavia, like when Tito died, and all the war and everything that he experienced in Mostar, because Mostar is a really kind of war-torn city. Like, there's still buildings there that are just riddled with bullet holes, and they're half collapsed and stuff, just because it was just went into chaos when Yugoslavia, broke up. And this is only recent history. Like, I can't remember when it was, but it's, in the last 30 years or something. I think that maybe happened in the 80s. I can't remember. But yeah, super interesting tour. The guy told us so much, and we got to see a bunch of stuff and went and visited some waterfalls and stuff, which was awesome. Went and saw this nice city that's like on the side of a hill. Everything looks like it could be in a movie, and it could be, on Game of Thrones or something like that. But that was really amazing. I definitely recommend Mostar. Much like my friend recommended it to me, it's a really nice city, and it's got a lot of great history, and and there's also the bridge there. There's this famous bridge in the middle of the city that people jump off. It's super high, like I think like 36 meters or something like that. Maybe not that high. Maybe like 20. I think it's like 25 or 30 meters. And they actually have done the Red Bull high diving competition there. And you can pay for these guys to teach you like the technique to jump off the bridge, and you can jump off it if you want, but it's at your own risk. Like, a lot of people actually seriously injured themselves doing it. Like, you can do it, if you do it properly, you can do it without hurting yourself that bad, but it's very common to, damage like ligaments in your knee, or because you've got to do a pin drop basically. If you're leaning slightly too far back, you can mess up your coccyx bone. Like, people have broken their coccyx and stuff. And I like jumping off stuff into water, but I was kind of like, I'm sort of in the middle of a long trip, and if I injure myself, it's gonna really suck. Like, it's gonna ruin the trip. So I decided not to do it. I've got a friend who did it, who's a really fit, athletic, sporty guy, and he damaged his knee, I think. So yeah, I didn't want to risk it. And Mostar was where I met up with the Aussie guys and the New Zealand guys again. So for this whole tour and everything, they were there with me. They arrived shortly after I did, and when I ate the soup and everything, even an hour after that, and she still brought them soup as well. So then we went together to Sarajevo, and in Sarajevo, what do I remember? There's this old bobsledding track from like the Winter Olympics that was there in the 90s, I think. And you can take like a gondola up to the top of the mountain and walk down this bobsledding track, which is awesome. It's cool graffiti and stuff there. It's all kind of in the middle of a forest going down a mountain. So that's definitely sick. I think that's the major thing I remember doing there. Then we went, I told these guys that I wanted to go to Turkey, and, you might have guessed, but I'm into podcasts, and I listen to people like Joe Rogan and stuff. And after watching Joe Rogan's episodes with Graham Hancock and I forget the other guy's name, the geologist guy, but that's kind of where I got an interest for like these ancient temple sites and ancient building sites and stuff. Like things that have some significance in ancient human history. And I had decided that I wanted to go to Turkey to see Göbekli Tepe, which is as far as human history goes, it's the oldest known like megalithic structure made by humans. Like you've got Stonehenge and stuff, which I said I think it's 5,000 years old. And then there's places like Newgrange in Ireland that I went to, which is even older than that. And, they're older than the pyramids and everything. And then Göbekli Tepe in Turkey is, I think, 12,500 years old. So it's by far like the oldest thing in human history. And like before we discovered this site, human history said that people at that time were hunter-gatherers. But then when they discovered this thing that's like this huge temple site with, stone carvings and stuff, and it's like multi-levels and it's massive, they realized, well, agriculture had to exist for people to live in a big enough group and stay there for long enough to be able to create this. So it's like this huge breakthrough in human history where we realize, well, actually, farming and agriculture is much older than we thought. And, they believe that like the domestication of things like wheat and all that kind of stuff began in that area, and what's called like the Fertile Crest, I think, which is kind of an area which covers like some of Turkey and Syria and Iraq and Iran. So that's basically where farming was invented, I guess. And it makes sense because it's quite close to East Africa, where we assume that like Homo sapiens species came from and migrated to this kind of area, and that's where agriculture started. So yeah, I was very interested in seeing that because I think it's super interesting. And I told these guys I was traveling with, and they're like, sweet, we'll come with you. Like, at least we'll come to Turkey with you. So we started the journey from Sarajevo to get to Turkey. And I remember when we were still in Sarajevo, sorry, this happened next city. So anyway, we went from Sarajevo and we went to Belgrade in Serbia. And Belgrade's known for like partying and stuff. Apparently clubbing and stuff is good there. And each night we were like, yeah, we're going to go clubbing tonight. And we got this crazy deal on an Airbnb place there, which was when we went in there, it was obvious that the place was a hostel, but we had paid for it as an Airbnb. So we actually had the whole place, like including the reception desk and stuff, was just like in the lounge room. There's no reception people working there, but we were looking around, we're like, this is a hostel. Like, we just have the whole hostel. And we were paying like nothing. I think it was like $30 each for like 2 or 3 nights. And yeah, and we had like a TV with like pay TV and like all the, paid channels and everything. So each night, and we had like a mini bar fridge and all this stuff, and there was like 12 beds there, and there was 4 of us staying there. So each night we're like, yeah, we got this huge place, like, and there's no one here, like we can go party, and if we make friends, like we can come back and party here, and people could even sleep here because we got 12 beds. Each time we thought that we would do that, we ended up just having a few beers and watching TV, and then we're like, we'll go out tomorrow night. I'm too tired tonight. So we never actually ended up going out. We just spent 3 days in Belgrade and just hung out by ourselves. But we did like, some walking tours and that kind of thing. But because we'd learned so much of the history about Yugoslavia from this guy in Mostar, we kind of had this feeling like Serbia were the bad guys. And we almost like didn't really want to listen to the history because we did, but like we felt like, I don't know, it's weird. But I think Serbia have had a really tough time as well. But it kind of felt like they were the bad guys. I mean, we just sort of wanted to ignore it all at that point, something like that anyway. But the other guys weren't really interested in going, but I went to the Nikola Tesla Museum because even though it's debated where Nikola Tesla actually comes from, they have a museum there from the house. I think it's in the house of his brother. I can't remember where he was born, but like there's some I think Serbia kind of claim Nikola Tesla and Croatia also claim him as well. But yeah, this museum is, as far as I know, in the house of this guy's in the house of Nikola Tesla's brother. And if you don't know, Nikola Tesla is kind of known for like creating a lot of electrical inventions, like the electric motor and all of that sort of stuff. And that's why Tesla, the car company, is named Tesla. It's named after Nikola Tesla. But yeah, that was awesome. And they have like a mannequin with his clothes on it. I didn't realize the guy was so huge. He's like 6.5 foot tall or something, 2 meters, whatever. And they had like like a Faraday cage that you can go in, and they have this things that like strike it with electricity and all that kind of stuff. It was very impressive. So I had fun with that. I got to keep moving. So this last night, or maybe the second last night in Belgrade, one of the Kiwi guys got sick in his stomach. Like he had really bad diarrhea. So we decided, it's a good idea. We just get a 10-hour bus to Sofia. So we went to Sofia in the country where Sofia is. What am I trying to say? Sofia is in Bulgaria. Sorry to all the Bulgarians. Victor Krum. So yeah, we went to Bulgaria, and yeah, he was having a really rough time on the bus. Like, every time they stopped, he would have to get out and go to the toilet and stuff. And then we only stayed in Sofia one night. We didn't get to see anything really. The hostel we were in was pretty gross too. But I kind of, like, just walking around the city at night, I kind of got the impression that Sofia is a little bit like Melbourne. Like it's kind of like fashion, like there's a lot of fashion stores and stuff. Like it had a similar vibe to Melbourne, which I didn't expect. I thought Bulgaria would be more like Russia or something, but I don't know. It wasn't. So then we decided the next morning, this guy was still super sick. And we're like, all right, let's get another 10-hour bus to Istanbul. Poor bastard. But yeah, we got on this other bus, and it was not a good bus ride for him either. And this one was much worse than the last one. Same story. Like every time we stopped, he had to go to the bathroom. And the funniest thing happened. I was asleep on the bus, and all of a sudden Pete like starts shaking my shoulder, and he's like, James, wake up. I'm like, whoa, what's up? He's like, I won't say his name because he would get embarrassed, but he's like, he needs to shit really bad. I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do about it? I'm like, he's like, I don't know. We got to figure something out, because there was no toilet on the bus. And there was a woman who would like walk up and down the bus handing out drinks and stuff. And we grabbed her attention. We're like, hey, our mate needs to go to the bathroom, like the toilet. And she's like, oh, okay. And I'll go and ask. And she went and asked, and she must have just said like, oh, when are we next stopping for the toilet? And she comes back and she's like, yeah, we're stopping for the toilet in 1 hour. And we're like, what? And she just walked away, and he's like, oh, fuck, like, I can't hold it, man. Like, I'm like holding it. It's so bad right now. And we're like, fuck, what are we going to do? And someone was like, here, like, we got this empty Dorito bag. Like, and he's like, oh yeah, give me that. And he's like, and I was like, oh, I think I've got napkins. Like, yeah, like in case you need to wipe your ass. So he was like preparing, like undoing his belt and stuff. He's like preparing to, in case it gets to an emergency, he's going to like shit in this Dorito bag. And we're like, dude, this is going to be so fucked. You can't do this. Like the whole bus is going to stink. Like it's so messed up. And we're like, oh fuck, what are we going to do? So I like grabbed the woman again. I'm like, hey, like come here. And she comes and she's like, he really needs to go. Like he's sick. And she didn't really understand what I was saying, but she looked at him and sees that he's got his belt undone with a napkin in his lap, holding an empty Dorito bag. And she just goes, oh. So she runs back to the front of the bus. And as soon as she got to the front, he pulled over immediately. Like she was obviously like, this guy's going to shit himself. So yeah, she pulled over, and everyone in the bus is like, what's happening? And my friend's walking down the middle of the bus, like holding his pants up because his belt's already undone, and he's got a napkin in his hand. And he like gets off the bus and has to like hang off a tree and just, did his thing. And he gets back on the bus, and we're like, you all good, man? And he's like, yeah, feeling much better. We're like, Jesus, that was close. And he's like, dude, it was like a hose. So yeah, that was a very funny experience for all of us. But we got to Istanbul, and even still for like a day at least, he was still feeling pretty crook. But, it was nice weather in Istanbul, so we got to go out and walk around and check out all like the amazing, I don't know, I'm going to offend people by saying these churches, mosques, I guess, like these, there's, mosque, I think. Like they have one called the Blue Mosque or something, and yeah, like people are going to say this is crazy, but we didn't go inside them. I know it's probably beautiful inside, but I've been inside so many churches at this point, and like, you know, there's heaps of amazing churches that I went inside in Russia. So yeah, I probably should have gone in, but we didn't. And there's huge lines, and you have to pay to get in and that kind of stuff. But yeah, we walked around the city. Istanbul is just shocking how huge it is. Like if you get up anywhere high where you can see around, like see a long distance, it just looks like the city goes forever. Like it's just insane. And it kind of has like maybe like a Southeast Asian kind of feel, in the sense that like the streets are quite tight and very busy, and like little trams floating around everywhere and people on motorbikes and that kind of thing. It's, you know, electricity in the air, like a lot of stuff happening all around you. But, you know, the food's amazing. It's definitely a cool city. And we went to the Grand Bazaar, which is like this huge market that they have there, which is all indoors, and, you know, there's amazing things you can buy. Also, like, it's kind of like the Vic Market in Melbourne, in a way that there's like, you know, fake watches and lots of fake clothing and that kind of thing, but also lots of authentic, like Turkish kind of stuff. So that was pretty cool. I didn't really buy too much because I just had this one carry-on bag, so I didn't want to fill myself up with souvenirs. But I think I bought a shirt or something because I wanted another shirt that I could cut the sleeves off, because I didn't have any, like it was getting so hot. I needed a singlet. And then, so we had been asking people, like, you know, what's it like going to Göbekli Tepe or Şanlıurfa, which is like the main city next to Göbekli Tepe. And people were telling us scary things. Like the guy at the reception in the hostel was like, oh no, don't go to Şanlıurfa. Like if you go there as a white man, like, you know, Daesh will capture you and they'll hold you ransom, try to get money from your government and stuff. It's like, yeah, like, you know, ISIS and all this kind of stuff, because Şanlıurfa is like, it's very close to the border of Syria, and you have to drive within like 100 kilometers of Aleppo, which is obviously, at that stage, it was red hot. Like that was kind of at the peak of, or kind of at the end of like the whole ISIS thing. So yeah, there was a safety concern among all of us, but I had also met guys, like I had met a guy when I was actually flying, I met a guy in the Qatar airport who was from Şanlıurfa, and he was like a tour guide, and he was telling me all about Göbekli Tepe, and he, you know, he said like, oh, people will tell you that it's dangerous and stuff, but it's not. Like I take people there all the time. So I kind of had that as like a comfort thing. And also like I know people like Graham Hancock and stuff had gone there, and he's obviously like a well-known figure. So if anything, he would be a ransom target. But also like I'd heard a lot of UK tourists who had gone there, and they said it was fine and people were really friendly and everything. And I even met some guys that were from Şanlıurfa, but they were working in a restaurant in Istanbul, and they were like, yeah, it's fine. Like my uncle owns a hotel there. You can call him or whatever. So I'd met enough people that said, yeah, it's safe and it's fine. But then still just having one person who is like, don't go there. Like you'll get captured by terrorists and they'll cut your head off or something. Like that's enough to make you kind of like, okay, I know there's 5 people that said it's fine, but this one guy said something really bad. So I was kind of weighing it up, and I made the decision that I was like, I feel like I'm comfortable with going. And like I was doing a lot more research than the other guys because it was my thing. They weren't that interested in it, but they were kind of like, we're going to go back and we want to go to Romania. And like up to that point, they had said like they would have come with me, but then they kind of heard this one guy say that it would be dangerous, and they're like, oh, we're not really up into that. Like we think we're going to go back to Romania. And I was like, well, that's fine. Like if this is where we split off, then, you know, I've had fun with you guys, and I'll just wake up in the morning and I'll catch the bus. The bus that goes to Şanlıurfa by myself. It's like a 12-hour bus or something ridiculous. Maybe like 19 hours or something. And they're like, okay, if that's what you want to do, then we're not going to stop you. I was like, all right. So got up the next morning, and Pete came up to me. I was eating breakfast, and he's like, "How are you, man?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." And he's like, "So what's your plan?" I was like, "Well, I found out there's this bus. I think, it comes at this time. I think I'm just going to take the bus and try to get some accommodation." And he sort of sat. He's like, "Yeah, okay." And he sort of sat there for a second. He just goes, "I'm going to come with you." I'm like, "What? What do you mean? Like, I thought you were going to Romania with these guys." He's like, "Yeah, but I feel like if you go there by yourself and you get killed by terrorists, I'm going to feel really guilty for it," which is a fucked up thing to say. But I was like, "Well, I'm pretty sure I'll be fine. Like, you don't have to do it if you don't want to." And he's like, "No, I think it's better if I come." And he's like, I think it's going to be interesting too. And I think it'll be much safer if there's two of us together. So he's like, "Fuck it. I'm here for an adventure. Let's do it." So I'm like, "All right, sweet." And he's like, "But let's not do the bus. Like, let's rent a car and we'll drive there." I'm like, "All right, cool." So we split the cost of a car and we rented the car for 6 days, and we saw a lot of Turkey. Like, we drove through Ankara to Gorim, which is in like this area of Cappadocia, which is the place you'll see on the internet where everyone's going in like the hot air balloons and stuff. And we were kind of in a rush, and this is also, people are going to say this is a crime that we didn't do it, but we didn't go in the hot air balloons. I do want to go back there and do that because I think it'd be amazing. But, it was nice enough even just waking up in this beautiful hostel that was like hotel that was like carved into the side of a limestone rock face, and waking up in the morning and seeing all these hot air balloons flying over you is like really amazing. But the cool thing about that area is that there's all these like little houses and tunnels and things that are kind of built into rock faces, people living inside rocks, and like you can go and look through all the, like, there's certain places where you can go and you can see all these like old churches that are built into rocks and everything. So that's really awesome. So we did a bunch of that, and then we drove south of there to a place called Kaimakli, I think, which is an underground city. And it's like legit, like this huge city completely underground. Like, you're in tiny caves. Like, I've been in the Coochie tunnels in Vietnam. It's like, it's not as small as that, but if you're claustrophobic, like, you would have a nightmare down there. Like, you're literally walking through tunnels that are like this. It's all just carved out of rock, and there's like little bits where people live, and then there's like a bit where people might have had their kitchen or something. Like, it's super old. Like, people don't live there now. It's like ancient. But and it's just like hundreds of levels. Like, it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And there's parts where you can see like air shafts that have been dug in that just, like, you look down it and it just looks like a never-ending pit. And I just was thinking the whole time, like, living down there, like, there would have been thousands of people living down there. The smell would have been fucking terrible. I don't know, maybe these like air shafts and stuff fix that problem, but I'm like, just imagine all people living down there in those showers, like pissing and shitting everywhere and cooking food and stuff. It would have been disgusting, but it's not disgusting now. Like, it's definitely, you can go down there and it's awesome. But yeah, if you're claustrophobic, you will probably struggle, but definitely a cool adventure if you're not claustrophobic. So yeah, then we continue driving down, and what I'll say about driving in Turkey is it's like you've gone through 10 different countries on one like 4-hour stretch of road. Like, my idea of Turkey was it's going to be like the desert, like what Iraq looks like in war movies and shit. Like, it's just going to be desert and rocks and stuff. When you first come into Istanbul, it's like very green and, hills and everything. And it did get to points like, in Cappadocia where it gets to like a desert that's all rocks and stuff. But then you'd also be driving through areas where it's like a winding road going up through mountains, and like you can see snow on the top of the mountains and like pine trees and stuff and forests. And you're like, this could be like Switzerland or North America or something. And then there's places where you go where it's just completely flat, like as far as you can see, just farmland, like grass as far as you can see. And, it's just, the landscape changes so much. So I think there's like heaps you can see in Turkey. But yeah, so the driving was awesome. So yeah, we went through Gaziantep, which is, like fucking 100 k's from Aleppo. And then we got to Shanlofa, and we got to Shanlofa at night, and we got out and started walking around on the street, which is probably a dumb idea, but also the feeling we got there was that it seemed quite safe. Like, we talked to a bunch of people and ate some food, like from shops on the street and everything, and everyone was super friendly with us, and the food was great. We had this dessert which is called kadayef. It's like this stringy kind of sweet pancake kind of thing with like pistachios on it. It's really good. Yeah, so stayed in a nice hotel there, which was quite cheap, and then went to Göbekli Tepe. Saw all of that. I'll probably make a separate video about that. Took heaps of photos. It was, yeah, amazing. Drove back through Gaziantep, through Adana, and then stopped in Antalya, which is like a nice beach city, but we didn't really see any beaches or anything. Something funny that happened there is like the streets are kind of like, we were driving on the streets, but it's like really tight streets, and some parts there's like markets on the street, and we're like, are we even allowed to drive here? We're just like driving through the middle of a market, and people are like moving their tables out of the way and stuff. But yeah, whatever. Sorry, I'm trying to rush through this. Then we went from Antalya to, where did we go? I know we went to Pamukkale, which is like, and I'm butchering all these pronunciations for sure, but Pamukkale is like, there's these like salt pools there that are up in this mountain, and there's also like an ancient city there on top of this mountain as well, with like a huge amphitheater, like, you know, something you would see in like an ancient Greek kind of place. This sort of like western side of Turkey is very similar to Greece, and there's a lot of ancient sites and stuff there to see as well. So we also went to another ancient city, which I can't remember the name of, but it's a more well-known, famous one, but I just can't remember it. We went to Izmir. I think we just went through Izmir. Oh, we went to the city of Troy. If you've seen the movie Troy, like that place, Troy, like where the Trojan horse was. So that actual city, and it's still mostly there. Like obviously a lot of it is eroded, but there's still a lot to see there. So if you've seen the movie Troy, that's super interesting. Then we went up to Çanakkale. No, I think Çanakkale was where we saw the city of Troy. Maybe? I can't remember. But then you go across to this little island thing, which is where Gallipoli is. So if you're an Australian or a Kiwi, you know what Gallipoli is. So we went there, and obviously I was with another Aussie. So, you know, we went and saw the beach where the Aussies and Kiwis and English and stuff landed and basically got slaughtered by the Turks. So, we went and paid our respects there and checked out the memorial site and stuff. And it was interesting for me too, because I've got a Maltese background as well. And I didn't actually know that the Maltese Army Corps was also part of that crew. Like it was the Australians and New Zealanders and the Maltese Army Corps. So, yeah, definitely cool to see. So then we went back to Istanbul, dropped off the car, and that was where we split up. So yeah, I had an awesome time. That 6 days with Pete driving around Turkey, we saw so much, and he was like, I'm so glad I made the decision to do that with you, because up until now, like most of my traveling experience has been running pub crawls at this place in Var, like dealing with drunken idiots. And I didn't really get to see anything. And like, we've just had this crazy adventure all through Turkey. And he was like, that's definitely like the coolest thing I did for this whole trip. So he was really glad he did it. And I was super glad that he came with me, because it made it so much better. Like we got to see so much more having a car. So I definitely recommend renting a car and driving around Turkey if you get the opportunity. But yeah, hugely thankful for him for coming with me, because it was awesome. So then we split up, and I flew to Athens in Greece. So Athens is pretty. I'm just realizing I'm at 50 minutes, but I really want to get through all of this, so I'm just going to keep speeding through it. See if I can do it. Went to Athens. Athens was like, the main thing to see there is the Acropolis, like this huge thing in the middle of the city with like the big temples and stuff there. If you want to know about it more, you'll look it up. But yeah, I wanted to see all the ancient temples and that kind of thing. So that was awesome. Went to Patras, I don't know, to get a ferry to Italy. Because one thing, this is very first world problem, but I thought I would want to stay in Greece for longer, but I don't like how you can't flush toilet paper there. So like all the hostels, like, there's shitty toilet paper in the toilets and stuff, and it in the bathrooms, and it was just disgusting. And after a few days, I was kind of like, I've seen the Acropolis, and that's what I wanted to see. I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm going to Italy. So I got a ferry to Italy and landed in Bari. I don't know. Bari? Bari. That ferry trip was amazing. Like sunsets on the ocean and seeing all the islands and stuff. Took heaps of time lapses and videos there. That was really beautiful. Met these two really nice Portuguese girls on the ferry, and we decided that we would meet up at another point, but we split up when we got to Bari. Bari, fuck, I don't know. I went to Rome, and Rome, obviously I wanted to see the Colosseum, which is just as amazing as I thought it would be. Like my knowledge of the Colosseum before that was like playing Assassin's Creed. But seeing it in person as an engineer and someone who's worked in the architecture field as well, it's like super impressive. Like there's these huge fucking limestone blocks that are like 100 meters in the air, like on top of this building. Well, not 100 meters, but like right at the top of this building. It's like, how the fuck did they get that up there? That would weigh like 6 tons or something. So yeah, love that. It's awesome. Went from Rome to Naples, and Naples is where I met up with the Portuguese girls again, and we went to Pompeii. Really wanted to go to Pompeii because it's this ancient city that got basically cleaned out by a volcano eruption. Like it killed everyone there, but most of the city is still there. And I wanted to go there because apparently they're going to make it so that the public aren't allowed to go in there anymore. And I think that's just because it's getting degraded over time. So I thought I want to see that before you can't see it anymore. So I did that. Then went from Naples, got a bus all the way down to Sicily. And because I wanted to go to Malta, because I have Maltese family. And I thought I'll go all the way down to Sicily because then I can just get the ferry across, and that's obviously going to be cheaper and more interesting than flying or something. But it turns out the ferry is like 150 euros, where a flight from like Naples would have been like 60 euros. So that didn't work out the way I planned. And also the ferry is like 2 hours, like it's super fast. So kind of wasn't really worth it. But Malta, I loved Malta, obviously. Like I've got to have a soft spot for Malta. But I spent, I think, 12 days there or something, and basically saw the whole country because it's tiny. It's like 100 kilometers around, like the whole thing. I rented a scooter for 2 or 3 days, and on the scooter, you could basically start in Valletta or Slima. Like Valletta is the capital, but Slima is like a big city just next to it, and which is where I was staying. I stayed in Slima, and I also stayed in St. Julian's. But yeah, I could basically rent a scooter from there, ride it all the way across the country, and there's actually 3 islands. The other 2 are smaller in the north. But I could get a ferry over to the other island, go to the opposite side of the furthest island, go swimming there in the beach, go and see some temples and stuff, and then come back and make it all the way back to Slima, and it's been like 5 or 6 hours or something. So yeah, I really saw, not everything, but I saw a lot in Malta. I went to like 6 different temple sites there, which are, also ancient temples, just like Göbekli Tepe or like Stonehenge and that kind of thing. But they're kind of in between that age range. They're more like, 8,000 years old or something, because I think that the temple builders that built Göbekli Tepe those people migrated over thousands of years through the Mediterranean and ended up in England, which is, so descendants from the people that made Göbekli Tepe would have ended up making Stonehenge, and also made all these temples and stuff in the Mediterranean along the way. Or, people that have shot off from that kind of ancestry ended up doing that. But I kind of followed that path of ancient temple builders. So that was pretty cool. And beautiful beaches and stuff in Malta. The water's really warm, super salty, so it's really easy to float in the water as well, which is really nice if you're just having a relaxing swim. Lots of places where you can jump off rocks into water, which I love. I did my first gainer, running forwards, backflip off a thing that's maybe 5 or 6 meters or something, but that was pretty cool. It was fun for me. Oh, and I went to a festival in Malta called, I think, even though there's a festival in Australia called Pitch, it was Glitch, I think, yeah. I went there with these Scottish people, and what I remember from that, I saw Nina Kravitz and Amelie Lenz, who were just they play every single festival ever. But yeah, that was awesome. And yeah, that's all I can remember from Malta. So then from Malta, I flew to Nuremberg in Germany, and that was 60 euros. So it's to fly 3 times as far as the ferry costs half the price. Nuremberg, I just kind of looked around in the city, walked around and took photos of stuff. And Nuremberg is a beautiful city. It's what I imagine Germany to look like, the typical kind of German looking buildings. So I got my first taste of what Germany is actually sort of like, because Berlin is not what Germany is like. Went from Nuremberg to Frankfurt, and Frankfurt didn't see that much either. There's probably some stuff to see there, but it's kind of one of those cities where it's actually a prostitute kind of city. So I was and it's also it's a place that you just have to go through a lot to get to other places. But I went there because I was going to Amsterdam. I went to Amsterdam and, did all the Amsterdam things. You know what I'm talking about? Not the dirty, disgusting things, but just the kind of naughty things that you don't tell your mum. And met up with somebody who I had met in Russia who was in Amsterdam at the same time, and we went and saw some cool stuff. There's a place where you can go where there's these big windmills, and it's super cute kind of farmy area. So did that, and just enjoyed going around and seeing all the canals and all that kind of stuff. Amsterdam's really beautiful. I didn't get to see Anne Frank's house or the Vincent van Gogh Museum because they're just too hard to get into. You have to book it in advance. But yeah, I really loved Amsterdam. I definitely want to go back to the Netherlands because I work with Dutch guys now, but they're from more in the south. But yeah, I want to see more of the Netherlands. So then I came back through Frankfurt. So the second time I went to Frankfurt, and I went down south to Freiburg, I wanted to go to Freiburg because it's next to the Black Forest, and I have some ancestry on mum's side which are from somewhere in the north of the Black Forest. But Freiburg, I went hiking up in this mountain which is an old silver mine, and it's the mountain is Swiss cheese. There's just mines and stuff all through it, but really beautiful place. I talked about this in my Germany versus Australia video. It kind of was walking through Alice in Wonderland kind of thing. It's really beautiful. Then I went to Bern in Switzerland. I was heading down to Bern to Switzerland, and I went to Bern because I met a Swiss girl when I was in Lviv in Ukraine. And she invited me. She said, if you want to come to Switzerland, you can come stay at my place. So yeah, that was super nice of her. She was awesome. She took me to see a concert, which is an outdoor. Oh, it wasn't a concert. It was actually a showing of this, audio visual kind of thing. Like this guy had made these visuals to go on a screen, and there was people playing music along with it. So that was really nice. I think there's probably a cool music and art scene in Bern that you could definitely delve into. And then I went south from Bern to a place that I can't remember the name of, but it was because I wanted to go hiking. It was near Interlaken, which is kind of between these two big lakes. And I climbed to the peak, or not to the peak, but I climbed over this ridge called Grunenberg Pass, I think. And it took me, I stayed there 2 nights, and I did a lot of hiking and saw a lot of amazing nature and took heaps of photos, and I almost died of hypothermia. I'm going to make another video about that because it was a whole other adventure of me being shit scared of whether, I didn't know for sure if there were bears there or not, like, because there's bears like on all the signs, but like the bear is the symbol of burn. So and also, yeah, didn't have proper equipment and thought it was going to be much warmer than it was. Turns out when you're on the top of a mountain, it gets fucking cold in the middle of the night, especially when it's been raining for 2 days and you're inside a cloud. So yeah, almost died there. But that's a story for another time. So yeah, went back to Bern. Then I went back into Germany and obviously went back through Frankfurt, because why not go to Frankfurt for a third time? And I went to Berlin, which is where I finished my trip. And Berlin, like I mentioned in my Germany versus Australia video, I've got a lot to say about Berlin. I saw a lot, like on my initial trip there, I saw a lot of stuff like museums and things. There's some other interesting stuff to see there if you're going there for the first time, like Teufelsberg, which is this old, like World War II kind of spy facility type thing with these big towers and stuff. But now it's kind of been claimed by like this crew of young artistic people who they do graffiti everywhere, or not graffiti, but street art. Like there's actual murals and stuff everywhere. So that's really amazing to see. And there's also other cool things to see, like Tempelhoferfeld, which is like this big, what was meant to be an airport that never got finished, is now just like a huge park. Like you can walk up and down the runways, you can ride your bike there, or a longboard or skateboard or whatever. And yeah, it's really fun. Like lots of people play music there and just go and hang out in summer. So some little tips there for you, but also there's lots of nice museums and then obviously the techno clubs. But watch my video about Germany versus Australia, because that's where I talk mostly about Berlin. So I left from Berlin after meeting my housemate who I now live with. I flew to Qatar, and this time I got to stay a little bit longer in Qatar. I had an 18-hour stopover, and I'm not sure if this is just with Qatar Airways or with all airways, but if it's over 12 hours stopover, they have to give you a hotel. So I got this super nice hotel with 2 double beds and like a spa and like a toilet and a bidet thing, whatever they call it. And they gave me like a buffet lunch, which was awesome. And I was like, all right, I want to go out and see the city. And I knew you have to have at least your shoulders covered. It's just like a cultural thing there. And I think they prefer it when you wear pants too, but I think you can get away with wearing shorts. And I was wearing shorts just because it was so stifling hot. Like when I got off the plane at 6 o'clock in the morning, after it had been night, it should be cold. It was 36 degrees at 6 o'clock in the morning. Like that place is just ridiculously hot. So I was like, I'm going out on a mission to see the city. Put my backpack on, just had a button-up shirt and some shorts and a bottle of water, like a 600ml bottle of water. That was gone within about 30 seconds. Like the heat, when you walk out of the hotel, the heat just like hits you in the face. It's just like thick air. And like, Australia is hot, but I've never experienced something as hot as this. And I don't even think it was like in the 40s. I think it was like the high 30s, but for some reason it just hits you in a different way. But I walked around the city for about 30 minutes, taking photos of all the amazing fancy buildings. Like it kind of looks like Dubai or something. These crazy like golden plated buildings and stuff. And like occasionally it would get so hot and you'd find somewhere where you could go inside and it was a shopping mall, and just all the shops are like super expensive designer clothing shops. I'm like, I could never even afford a bottle of water here. No, I think that's why I went in there to buy water, and I bought like a 2-liter bottle and I drank all of that as well. But yeah, anyway, I kept walking around. At one point I was like, I was walking along and I'm like so hot and dehydrated, and my shirt was just completely drenched in sweat. And I was like, maybe I'm going to touch the ground and see how hot it is. Like delirious. I bent down and touched the ground with the back of my hand. I was like, oh, it's pretty hot. And then as I went to stand up, I stood up and then I just got this like heart cramp. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to die. It's like, I could see the building that the hotel was in. And I was like, I just got to get back to the hotel. I'm like drinking water and like stumbling down the street. It's like, oh, it's so hot. But yeah, I made it back. And I came back in. When I left, the security guards at the door were like, oh, you going outside? I am. Like, yeah. And they're like, have fun. And then when I got back, I'm just completely drenched in sweat. And they were just pissing themselves laughing at me. And I was like, it's pretty hot out there. But yeah, I definitely don't regret going to see the city because I'd never seen any place like that. It's interesting. But yeah, that was it. And then I flew back to Melbourne and didn't tell anyone that I was coming home. And I went and walked up to my friend's, my old housemate's front door. And I was just like, he opened the door and I was like, hey man, what's going on? He's like, oh, hey, wait a minute, what? So I kind of was inspired by one of my friends that did that to me when he moved to Canada for a year. So I did that as well. And that was pretty funny. But yeah, that was the end of my trip. So I know I said it was over, but I just thought it'd be cool to show the actual path I took over the 5 months of traveling. So flew into Qatar and London, then bus to Bristol, car to Stonehenge and back, bus to Manchester, train to Liverpool, car into Wales and back, bus up to Edinburgh, then a car with my parents around Scotland, bus down to Glasgow, ferry to Ireland, buses around Ireland, flight through Paris to Stockholm, ferry from Stockholm to Turku, then buses through Finland into Russia, train to Moscow and back, then buses down through Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and into Ukraine, a van to Chernobyl and back. Then the longest bus trip of the whole trip was Kiev back to Krakow, 23 hours. Then a car across to Auschwitz, then a bus down to Hungary, Croatia, ferry to Var and back to Dubrovnik, bus to Mostar, train to Sarajevo, buses through Serbia, Bulgaria, and to Turkey. Then a car halfway around Turkey, back to Istanbul, flight from Istanbul to Athens in Greece, then a bus across to the west of Greece to Patras, then a ferry to Italy, buses through Italy, down to Sicily, then a ferry to Malta, flight up to Nuremberg, bus into the Netherlands, then down into Switzerland, a train to the place where I went hiking, and then a bus all the way back to Berlin, and a flight back to Qatar and back home. So here's a complete list of all the places that I went to, 27 countries, 120 cities / towns / places of interest. So you can see there's a lot of stuff to cover. That's why the videos ended up taking so long and why there's no way I could include everything that I did. 152 days is a long time, and squeezing this much into that you're taking in a lot. So I hate to think about how many kilometers I've walked, but I would say averaged probably at least 15 Ks a day. So it'd be a lot. But yeah, if you got any questions about any of the places on the list, feel free to shoot me a message. We fucking did it. It's finally done. After 3 episodes, we can move on to something else. There it is. God. Got to come down from it. So, Dunskies. I was going to talk about one other thing, which I won't. I'll put it in the next episode. Because this one's gone too long. But yeah, housekeeping. I think I got above 40 subscribers now. So slowly building up there. 42 or something like that. Look out, PewDiePie. I'm coming for you. Some other stuff I was going to talk about. I'll do it in the next episode. Shout outs. I didn't write anything. Shout out to, again, all the people who are staying inside for quarantine. Went outside today to see what was meant to be a social distancing jam session out at this like river on a canal. And it was like, yeah, like everyone's going to stand 5 meters apart. And I got there and all the musicians that were there, the guys that had organized and everything, they were all standing 5 meters apart. They were doing the right thing. And there was actually people on both sides of the canal. So like drummers on one side and our friends playing like saxophone and stuff on the other side. The idea was that, you know, exaggerating the fact that we're staying apart. We're like on the other sides of the river. But everyone, all the musos were doing the right thing. But just a sea of all these other punters, just like people walking around with beers and, you know, walking up to people, hey man, how you going? Like shaking hands and hugging people and just touching everyone. It's like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, don't you get it? But yeah, I'm seeing a lot of that lately, and yeah, I guess you just need to avoid looking at that. Get the feeling, Corona, definitely got it. Yeah, get the feeling a lot of people don't know if they want to just rebel or if they're just not paying any attention to it, or if they're just like, I'm young, like I don't give a shit about this. But yeah, a lot of people just kind of ignoring all the warnings and all the stuff from the government, which is, I find it sad. I find it shitty. Other people might not, but whatever. All the people who are doing the right thing, keep it up. You know, find a creative outlet, find something to keep you occupied, start a project, start talking shit on the internet if you want to. But yeah, do something to keep you sane while you're staying inside, and use this as an opportunity to do something that you wouldn't have done if you weren't forced to stay inside. Yeah, I don't know what it's like in Australia, but right now, like, it's kind of stepping up a little bit. Like, we have to wear masks in the supermarkets and stuff now. But yeah, you know, just stick at it, and it'll all be over eventually. So yeah, shout out to all you guys. And I've just about lost my voice. Next episode, conspiracies. It's going to be fun. I'm going to be more divisive and, you know, break some people's hearts, piss some people off. Hopefully not insult anyone personally. But whatever. Look forward to that and some other points here that I'll put in the next episode. But anyway, thanks again for listening. Catch you later.